Hello and welcome to another episode of The Living Philosophy. Today I want to talk about a little note that Heraclitus sounds in one of his fragments that is echoed in the East, and I think it's a really important thing for understanding a lot of spiritual stuff and for approaching the philosophical concept of qualia. Now, qualia are things that it's kind of a phenomenological experience. It's something like colour, something that is experienced with the senses and is consequently hard to put into words. And this is the way that Heraclitus puts this dilemma. The Lord whose oracle is at Delphi neither speaks nor conceals, but gives a sign. This is one of Heraclitus' quotes, and clearly he's referring here to the Delphic Oracle, which was the ancient Greek. There was the Pythian Oracle, the oracle who gave the prophecies for the ancient Greek culture. So you see this in the movie 300 when Leonidas goes to the oracle. It crops up a lot of times in Heraclitus, and probably the most famous example is when Croesus goes to, so Croesus would have been the king of Lydia, or I believe it's Lydia, not Lycia, in Asia Minor, and he goes to the Delphic Oracle asking what the outcome of the battle between him and the Persians will be, and the Oracle tells him that if you battle Persia, a great empire will fall, and he goes away thinking this is brilliant, so he thinks that he's going to win, but ultimately it's his empire that crumbles. And what's being said here with Heraclitus anyway is that because the Delphic Oracle didn't speak straight a lot of the time, that it was kind of that thing, it was ambiguous, it was speaking in kind of riddles. And what Heraclitus is saying is that she doesn't speak directly, she gives a sign, and that's kind of all I guess the Eastern expression captures this beautifully with the wise man points to the moon but the fool only sees the finger, and that's the sense of the giving a sign. She can't tell you exactly what it is because it's something experienced, but she can point a finger for you, and you haven't seen the moon just because you've seen where the finger is pointing. And this thing of all the wise men and mystics and enlightened beings talking about enlightenment, and there's a great thing at the start of Anthony Mello's collection of stories, The Song of the Bird, and it's the master saying to his disciples, everything I say to you about the truth is a lie, it's a warping of the truth, and it's completely false. And they're saying, well, why do you say anything? And he said, well, why does the bird sing? But it's that thing of how can you capture anything? How do you explain the colour green to a blind man? How do you explain that sentiment, that sensation, that thing that is so personal, that is so inherently about the sensory apparatus we're born with? And the usual way we do this is with this or that. So you go, oh well, that's green and that's green and that's green. So if someone was newly sighted, then you would point out different things to them that are green, different things to them that are circular, and you could start to instruct them in what these things are, because they wouldn't have a thing of it before. Now obviously they probably have some notion of what a circle is, but to map it over onto the visual thing. So it's a really interesting thing of there's so much that we take for granted because we share the same sensory apparatus. And when something transcends the traditional experience of life, then it's very hard for us to communicate it. And impossible for us to communicate it, because you can't just go this, that. And so that's what the enlightened people are trying to say to us. That's what the mystics are trying to say to us, is that they're trying to point to this or that, but the thing is that you can't really recognize it. So there's an old story about the colour green, and it's a man who he meets a blind man when he's going into town one day, and the blind man asks him, well, what's the colour green? Can you tell me what the colour green is? And he says, well, I guess green is soft like satin. And he goes, soft like satin, brilliant. And he's going about his day. Then another man comes up and he says, here, can you tell me and it's another blind man. Very coincidental, but I guess a story is a story. Anyway, so this second blind man comes up to him, and this blind man says, hey, can you tell me what the colour green is? And he says, oh, well, green is, I guess green is like beautiful music. And the guy goes, oh, okay, green is like beautiful, okay, nice, that's nice. So he goes off and he's happy, and your man goes in about town, and on his way home he sees two men fighting at the end of the road, and he goes up to them, they're whacking each other with sticks, and he goes up and he recognizes the two blind men. And they're hitting each other with their blind sticks. And he says, hey, break it up here, what's going on? And the one blind man, he says, he's saying green is soft like satin, when I know it's like beautiful music. And it's a parable, or an allegory, I guess, to tell us about the nature of truth, and how when we're told things by mystics or by people who have experienced something that transcends the traditional human experience, then it's like explaining green to a blind person, and we are the blind people who take those things and we will fight over them. And I'll call it Christianity, and you'll call it Islam, and you'll call it Buddhism. We'll just hit each other with sticks until, we dominate, and the definition of truth that we haven't experienced but believe to be the truth is the one we will die for and kill others for, even though we're all talking about the same thing. We're all talking about the moon, and there's so many fingers pointing to the moon. There's so many oracular declarations telling us that they give us signs, but we mistake the signs for the destination. We mistake the map for the territory, and it's something completely different to experience the realism, the actual destination, rather than to just speak about it. So Heraclitus, he talks a lot about the logos, how it is wise agree not with me, but with the logos that all things are one. He talks a lot about sleeping people, and how the sleeping don't know that they're awake, or they're present but they're not here. And it's this theme of the general run of people being asleep to the truth, to the logos that joins everything. And so I guess that's kind of what he's pointing to, and it's very similar to the mystics or the Taoists or the Buddhists, the Indian enlightened people, that it's this message of the ineffability of truth. And it's interesting to think, well, what are they experiencing? What is the experience that they're tapping into? Because obviously our brains are its potential for us to experience it, because individuals have experienced it. So our brain wiring can experience this new thing. Is it like a new sense? Like what is going on? So it's a really interesting thought, and I think Heraclitus sheds a little bit of light on it with that, and the Eastern saying kind of completes it in some sense. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Living Philosophy. If you have, please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you enjoyed the video, please give us a comment down below, give us a like, and I'd love to hear from you, and I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching.